Have you ever heard the term out of alignment and wondered what that meant for you? Today, I'm going to be sharing my top 3 ways that I know when I'm out of alignment. And you might think it's this hair that I've got going on today, but it's not one of my top 3. So let me ask you, when you think about alignment, what comes to mind? You might consider if someone is, let's say, building a house, if the walls, are out of alignment, then things lean or they won't match up. If you think of your spine being out of alignment, that could cause your hips to be off. It could cause your walk to be off. So things just aren't quite right. In the terms of financial, you may hear that things aren't mathing. Money isn't mathing. So those are when things are out of alignment. So how does that equate to your path and learning when you're out of alignment? Well, I have found that when you are on a spiritual path, it is really important that you also remember you are having a human experience. So you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And when the human experience is out of alignment with who you are as a higher self, you'll begin to notice that you're out of alignment with where you're headed. And everyone is a little bit different, but I'm going to give you my top 3 ways that I've learned when I'm out of alignment. And that can throw off your spiritual path as well. So, one is physical and emotional symptoms. So, if you can tell, I've had to clear my throat and cough a little bit ever since I started doing this video. Well, it was happening before that, so I realize it's not about the video. By the way, this is one of my number 1 is physical and emotional symptoms. So a lot of times if someone begins to notice a physical symptom or emotional symptom, they immediately start thinking about illness or start thinking about what's wrong with them or start thinking any number of things that aren't helpful. What I tend to do is recognize that my body is giving me signals that I may be out of alignment, or it's attempting to tell me something. So physical and emotional symptoms are one way to know that you're out of alignment, when your body starts speaking to you. Now, in the simplest terms, with this going on right now, I would consider my throat chakra as something that I am needing to say and something that's being held down. I have a lot going on personally, so that tracks. I know what's going on. So it will be important for me to take a look at what's going on in my life and where do I need to be able to use my voice. So that's how that works when you're looking at physical and emotional symptoms. You start to look at what is the physical and emotional symptom that you're having. And then you begin to look at the deeper meaning for that particular symptom. Now, that takes some time to learn, and that's part of the work I help people do, is help them understand what their body is trying to say to them. My number 2 is when you return to coping skills. So I have found on the journey, the more healing I do, the less coping skills that are needed. That means things that I used to need to get through life, to cope with life. The more I healed, the more I became in alignment, the less coping skills I needed. because I was aligned. There was nothing to cope with. So when I find myself returning to old behaviors, such as stress eating. Now, I used to be a heavy smoker. I haven't returned to that. I also used to drink alcohol. I haven't returned to that. It was never something, alcohol was never something I did that was problematic, although it had, I had problematic behaviors that I recognized that could become problematic if I didn't change that behavior. Let's see. Relationships. Relationships used to be a coping skill for me. I had challenges with abandonment and things like that, so I would get out of one relationship and jump right back into another. That was a coping skill that helped me soothe my central nervous system. So again, with all of the things that are going on right now with me personally, stress eating has come back up, and I have put back on a considerable amount of weight in the last 60 days. So that lets me know that I am very, very stressed with a family situation, and that has me out of alignment with my path. So that's number 2. Number 3 is when you begin to get reactionary. On my path, I have done a lot of work and I'm no longer reactionary. I respond. I don't react. Now, when I am out of alignment, I will start reacting again. And that means a great example is out driving. When I'm in alignment, I am peaceful on the inside. And when I'm out of alignment, I am not peaceful on the inside. So let's say when I'm driving, I'm irritated. I'm irritated by everything. I'm irritated by other drivers. I'm irritated by, I don't know, whatever, the sun. I'm irritated by traffic signals. Like, I'm just irritated. I'm very reactionary to things. So those are my top 3 ways to know that I am out of alignment. It is the physical and emotional symptoms, returning to coping skills, and becoming reactionary rather than responding. So let me give you some examples that may be helpful in your own life. Now, there are other ways that these play out, but in particular with alignment. A lot of times on this human experience, we do things because we feel like it's the right thing to do. It's the logical thing to do. It's what we're supposed to do, should do, ought to do. And it feels like it somehow checks a box in society. And this can create a lot of problems between you and your higher self and your higher purpose. When you are acting in a way that seems to fit societal norms, but it is out of alignment with your higher self, your body will start reacting. Boundaries may be a problem. Doing things because it feels like it's correct and logical. The spiritual path can be very difficult to understand. I have found when I am in alignment with my spiritual path, I feel at peace on the inside. There may be some fears that come up connected to my human experience, but when I realize I'm a spiritual being and that everything is realigning for my path, and realize that I have stepped out of faith and into fear, that allows me to navigate a little bit better. So I'm wondering, does this make sense to you? Does this help you understand alignment a little bit better and what alignment means and how it may be showing up for yourself? This path can be very complicated when we're navigating it alone. We often don't see our blind spots. We often don't see what we're missing. And if we're bouncing back and forth between, let's say, getting advice in the human experience and then trying to get spiritual advice, a lot of times those may be conflicting. So it's kind of like you got to pick a lane and understand where you are on this journey. Let me explain on the physical symptoms part that I mentioned. Let's say a perfect example. I broke my shoulder in 2020. Most people, and I was in severe pain. It was my dominant shoulder and it was up here. I couldn't move. I drove a stick at the time. I couldn't drive. I couldn't shower. I couldn't take care of myself in the restroom. Like, there were a lot of problems. Most people would immediately go and get care in a normal fashion. I didn't. I waited about a week. And why did I wait about a week? Because I knew that that broken shoulder was there to tell me something. I was very out of alignment at that time. And my shoulder had to be something really painful and really loud to get me to pay attention. So I did. I got it. I understood. And I was like, okay, what is it I need to know here? What are you trying to tell me? And once I received the messages that I needed to receive, then I went and got medical attention. Does that make sense? So I needed the intervention of medical attention. However, I tended to my spiritual path first. And a lot of times on physical and emotional symptoms, I can work through them without any kind of intervention, which is how I've managed to get to the other side of most of the diagnoses I had prior to spiritual awakening. Now, that takes a lot of work, a lot of healing, and a lot of skill to understand how to do that. Now, let's say you have something that you feel like you're doing the work for it. And I don't mean you did it one time or 3 times or 5 years ago. I mean, you're actively doing the work. In other words, you're still having a symptom, then there's still something trying to get your attention. And let's say during that, you're finding it very, very, I hate to say difficult, because that can also be a mindset issue. But let's say it's gotten to the point where it feels emergent. Well, then get, the attention that you need from a medical professional. It takes time to understand the language of your body. I have navigated through so many things over the last 11 years that that's not my first line of defense. It is as needed. I'll say it that way. For coping skills. Right now, I mentioned stress eating. Is that something I need outside intervention for? No. I'm not binging and purging. I'm not doing anything that is creating emergent sort of a situation. I'm stress eating, and I recognize it. And is it a concern? It is a concern. And I'm also looking at what is happening right now and creating the situation and giving myself grace. There's no shame. There's no guilt. I'm not beating myself up over it. It simply is something that I've noticed that is giving me the evidence that I need that I'm out of alignment. The last one on being reactionary, when you realize you're snapping at people, you're frustrated, you're irritated, you're super angry, that's a time to check in with yourself. Take a pause, do some breathing, recognize now that's something you can handle on your own. You can check in with your higher self. You can check in with your path and see where you might be out of alignment. It could be in your mind, could be mindset, self-talk, self-chatter that's creating the problem. When it becomes really problematic is when you have started to take that out on other people. That is when you've got to pause. You've got to pause and say, I might need intervention because this is getting out of hand. So I would like to know from you if you've noticed these three things. If you're noticing that these three things are showing up in your life, it could be a really good way to know that you're out of alignment. So let me know how you're doing. And if you need extra support, take advantage of an Intro to Alchemy session, and let's see if we can get you back in alignment. Take care.